My mother stared directly into me the moment I called her from work and told her Lily needed to be picked up. "I'm not your babysitter," she said. No pause, no hesitation, no trace of softness, just a clean slice from the one person I had spent my whole life hoping might someday show up for me. While Lily sat outside her school shivering for 2 full hours, my parents moved through their day like her fear was nothing more than background noise. I didn't scream, I didn't argue, I didn't beg. I just went still. A silence so heavy it frightened even me. And 3 days later, the ripple of panic began. Before I tell you what unfolded, answer me honestly. Would you have swallowed the hurt, or would you have walked away too? Maybe I should start with who I was before everything split down the middle. I'm Sophia, 32, a single mom who spent her entire adult life mastering the art of looking calm even when the world is tilting. At work, they call me steady, dependable, the one who stays composed while everyone else falls apart. They don't understand that it isn't a temperament, it's muscle memory I learned long before I drew my first paycheck. Our home is tucked into a quiet corner of the city, a small apartment filled with soft lamps, warm blankets, and colors gentle enough to breathe in. It isn't luxurious, but it feels like refuge. And when you're raising a 7-year-old who still believes the world is kind, refuge matters more than anything. Lily has my features, but not my past, and I've tried to protect her from every shadow I ever lived through. She sings while stirring pancake batter, twirls until she falls over giggling, leaves sparkly confetti in places no vacuum will ever truly reach. I want her to feel held in the ways I never was. My parents live across town in a house colder than any winter. My mother, Miriam, moves through life wrapped in certainty like it's armor, shiny and rigid. When I was a child, she'd look at me and say I was too emotional, like feeling deeply with some defect she needed to correct. My father, Charles, has always believed that peace comes from swallowing conflict whole. Silence became his entire personality, so thin and practiced, it nearly disappears. Still, I tried with them. Holidays, birthdays, weekend visits. I kept showing up even when it meant setting myself on fire for warmth that never came. I kept hoping becoming a grandmother would soften something brittle inside my mother. Sometimes she'd hold Lily with this stiff, awkward smile, and for a fleeting second, I'd imagine a different childhood than the one I had, a version where she pulled me close instead of pushing me down. But the cracks were always there. Little digs, dismissive comments, moments where she treated Lily like decor rather than a person. I swallowed all of it, smoothed it over, convinced myself that maintaining peace was the same as maintaining family. Then came that late winter afternoon, the fever call from the school, the sudden panic, and my mother's voice, flat, clipped, sharp, cutting through the noise in my office like she'd been waiting her whole life to say it. It didn't just break something, it exposed what had been broken long before. You ready for the moment where everything shifted? The school should never have allowed Lily to wait outside, but by the time I arrived, the damage was already carved into her tiny shoulders. She was curled on a concrete bench, clutching her backpack for warmth, her breath puffing in thin clouds. Her cheeks were red from cold, not sickness. When she saw me, she didn't leap into my arms. She just stood up slowly, exhausted, and whispered, "Can we go home now?" Something inside me tightened, solid and silent. That night, after wrapping her in a blanket and making ginger tea, I kept replaying the whole thing. My mother's blunt tone, the way she hung up, the receptionist mumbling that the office was short-staffed. I wanted to scatter blame across the entire city, but that icy 2-hour wait belonged to one person, Miriam. Still, the old habits kicked in. Don't push, don't argue, don't start anything. You won't win. I'd spent my life shrinking myself to fit the shape of her comfort. 3 days slipped by before the first voicemail landed, then another, then another. My aunt first. "Your mother says she can't reach you. What's going on?" Then Carol, my mother's friend, never mine, sounding uneasy. "She's been calling you. Did something happen?" Then my father, voice low and strained. "Your mother's upset. Can you return her call?" Not one person mentioned Lily, not one word about the little girl who waited in the cold. I wasn't dodging them to punish anyone, I was simply empty. But the true shift didn't come from the voicemails. It came a few days later when Lily and I stopped at the big retail store near my parents' neighborhood. I rarely went there, too many old memories, but Lily needed frosting for a class project, and we were on our way to Carol's place for a baking afternoon she'd been excited about all week. We were halfway down the baking aisle when I heard her voice. Sophia. Not gentle, not affectionate, just startled. Lily turned first, offering a polite little smile, the kind she gives strangers, not family. Miriam crouched slightly, arms open, ready for a hug, but Lily didn't move. She glanced at me instead and asked if she could pick the frosting with sprinkles. My mother straightened slowly, her expression splintering for the first time in years. "Why are you here?" she asked. "We're getting supplies. We're headed to Carol's." The way her face went rigid told me she finally felt it, the distance she had carved with her own hands. For once, I didn't rush into the silence. Miriam blinked at me like she couldn't translate my words. "Carol's? Why would you go there?" That familiar edge returned, the one she used to slice me down to size when I was small. The tone meant to correct me, to fold me back into compliance. I didn't answer. I didn't owe her the comfort she never gave me. She forced a smile that looked like it hurt. "Well, I could join you. I haven't seen Lily in a while." Before, I might have considered it, tried to ease things, tried to be the good daughter, but that version of me froze to death outside Lily's school. "No," I said, "you're not invited." Color drained from her face. I watched the shock ripple through her, almost physical. She stepped closer, her familiar perfume crowding into my space. "Sophia, this is absurd. You're still bothered about that school thing? I was busy. You know how you blow things out of proportion. Why stretch this out?" Busy, exaggerating, dragging it out. The same script she had used on me since I was old enough to understand disappointment. I crouched beside Lily, who was comparing sprinkles like nothing else existed. "Ready to go?" I asked. She nodded, placed the jar in the cart, and slipped her hand into mine. We walked past Miriam without another glance. That night, 4 voicemails waited. One furious, one baffled, one tearful, and one asking to see Lily. I didn't replay a single one, and the silence she had always used as a blade suddenly belonged to me. Days passed. My father texted in the same tone he always used, not to understand, not to acknowledge what happened, but to nudge me back into my old role as the emotional cushion. "You've made your point. Your mother is miserable. What do you want from her?" But he never understood. This was never about making a point. It was about drawing a line. Then the envelope arrived. Thick, cream-colored, formal. I almost tossed it out, but curiosity made me open it. Inside was a brief legal notice. My parents had updated their will. I was no longer the executor. Rachel, my cousin who once called Lily dramatic for crying at her own birthday party, would now take my place. It was designed to hurt me. Instead, it confirmed everything. I set the paper on the counter, not angry, not crying, just steady, certain. They wanted distance, so I gave it to them. But even as I stepped back, I felt something else stirring at the edges, something bigger, something shifting, like the air tightening right before a storm breaks, and storms always demand a reckoning. By the end of February, I had grown used to the quiet. Not peace quiet, the kind that settles in after a long storm but still smells like rain. My phone barely buzzed anymore. When it did, it was a short message from my dad, a guilt-laced voicemail from my mother, or a clipped reminder from Rachel about some family update I hadn't acknowledged. I'd stopped answering. I'd stopped explaining. I'd stopped trying to fix what none of them wanted to face. And in the stillness, Lily changed too. She no longer asked when we'd see Grandma or why we didn't visit on Sundays anymore. She just moved around our little apartment with a softer, steadier confidence, as if she'd learned in her own quiet way that safety is not a place, but a person. Then, on a bitter Thursday night, the storm finally broke. It was just before midnight when my phone lit up. I didn't recognize the feeling in my chest when I saw the name. It wasn't fear, it wasn't worry, it was something closer to resignation and exhausted acknowledgement that whatever came next had been brewing for years. I let it ring, one call, then another. When I finally checked, there were 3 missed calls from my dad, then a text. "Power's out. Your mom slipped on the porch. I can't get the car out. Can you come help?" For a moment, I pictured the scene. The steep driveway she always refused to let anyone shovel, the frozen walkway she insisted she could handle herself, the porch light that flickered when the wind hit a certain angle, and her, Miriam, angry, cold, stunned that the world wasn't bending to her will. The part of me that had spent my childhood trying to please her flinched, reflex, not desire. But the image that came after erased everything. Lily on the school steps, tiny body curled against the cold, breath turning to mist, waiting for someone who never came. I typed one word, "No," and I put my phone face down. I slept better than I had in weeks. In the morning, sunlight cut a thin line across my bedroom floor. My phone showed 7 more missed calls and 2 voicemails, one frantic, one crying. I didn't press play. Instead, I called Carol and asked if she wanted to take Lily to the Children's Museum. She said yes without hesitation. That's who she was, steady, present, soft where my mother was sharp. We spent the day wandering through hands-on exhibits, laughing at Lily's hiccups when she ran through the bubble room, and eating pancakes at a diner that smelled like warm syrup and childhood. At no point did Lily ask where my parents were. The next wave came through Rachel. She called late in the afternoon, her voice pitched somewhere between concern and condescension. "Your mom fractured her wrist. Your dad's back is out from helping her. They've been without power for 2 days. Maybe you should consider being the bigger person here." I almost laughed. Bigger person, as if I hadn't spent my entire life being exactly that. "I already am," I said. "That's why I'm keeping Lily away." She sputtered, caught off guard. "You don't mean—" "I do." I hung up before she could finish. The next day, an email arrived, long, rambling, full of sentences that almost resembled apologies but never quite made it there. The kind my mom always crafted when she needed something, not when she understood something. "I'm sorry things got out of hand. I miss you both. Family should stick together. I don't know how we ended up here." Every line skirted the real issue. Not once did she mention Lily outside that school. Not once did she admit what she'd done. I closed it and went on with my day. By early March, the temperature dropped even lower. The roads shimmered with a thin sheet of ice that seemed to hold the whole city by the throat. I wrapped Lily in her warmest coat and scarf, and we drove to a craft fair in a small town an hour away. She wanted to buy sparkly string for friendship bracelets. She held my hand the entire time. On the drive back, Carol spotted a car on the shoulder, a black SUV with hazard lights blinking in the gray afternoon. She said my name softly. I slowed just enough to see through the frost-blurred windows. It was my parents, my dad hunched over the steering wheel, my mom leaning back, her wrist wrapped, her face pale. They looked small in a way I'd never seen them, like the world had finally handed them a mirror instead of a microphone. For a moment, I hovered on the edge of stopping, not because I felt obligated, but because the child I used to be still lived somewhere in my bones. Then Lily looked up from the back seat, humming a tune as she braided her sparkly string. I pressed the gas. When we got home, I made dinner while Lily showed Carol her crafts. The hum of the apartment heater, the clatter of dishes, the soft laughter. It all felt like a life I'd built intentionally, piece by piece, without realizing it. But even then, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she showed me a drawing, a small pink house, 3 stick figures, me, Lily, and Carol, Lily in the middle, holding both our hands. "Can I put it on the fridge?" she asked. "Of course." She paused before skipping off. "Mom, do I still have a grandma?" The question caught me off guard, not because of its content, but because she asked it without anger, without sadness. Just curiosity, like she was rearranging the world in her head and trying to understand where everything fit now. "Yes," I said softly, "but things are complicated." She nodded in that wise, unassuming way children sometimes do. Maybe she forgot how to be nice. After she went to bed, I stared at that drawing until the room blurred. In all my hurt, in all my protecting, I had forgotten the simplest truth. Lily had her own story, her own feelings, her own understanding of family, and maybe she wasn't ready to erase people the way I had been forced to. So I picked up my phone and for the first time in weeks typed a message. Do you want to see Lily next weekend? No apology, no conditions, just an opening. My mother replied in 3 minutes. Yes. The following Saturday, we met at a park, neutral ground, cold but brighter than the weeks before. My parents sat on a bench like people unsure whether they were welcome. Lily approached them slowly, then turned to me for permission before saying hello. They said it back. Then she asked, "Grandma, will you push me on the swing?" My mother looked stunned, not triumphant, not relieved, just stunned. She looked at me. I nodded, and in that moment, small, fragile, real, the storm finally began to settle. My mother walked toward the swing as if the ground beneath her might crack. She placed her good hand on the back of the seat and pushed gently, almost cautiously, like she feared Lily might change her mind. Lily leaned back, letting the wind catch her hair, her small boots brushing the dirt with each pass. My parents didn't rush, didn't overstep, didn't try to claim a place they hadn't earned. They simply existed in the background, quiet, tentative, aware. For the first time, that silence wasn't a weapon, it was space. I sat on a nearby bench, watching the scene unfold with a strange blend of relief and ache. I wasn't healed, neither were they, but the sharp edges inside me had softened, rounded by time and distance, and the realization that my power had never come from punishment. It came from protection, protecting Lily, protecting myself. The visit lasted less than an hour. No speeches, no forced apologies, just small, careful steps. When it was time to leave, my parents didn't ask for more. They simply nodded, grateful for what they'd been given. A week later, my dad emailed me a flyer for Lily's school fundraiser, asking if they could attend, only if it's okay with you. I said yes with boundaries. They followed, everyone. They stayed in the back, clapped quietly, and left without trying to rewrite history. Another drawing appeared on our fridge soon after, same pink house, but now 5 figures. And for the first time, the picture didn't hurt. It felt like a beginning, not perfect, but possible. In the end, nothing returned to the way it was, and that was the point. We didn't rebuild the old version of our family. We built a quieter, sturdier one, shaped by boundaries instead of fear. Lily felt safe again, and I finally understood that protecting her would always matter more than keeping the peace. If this story stayed with you, tell me where you're listening from. And if you've ever had to draw a hard line with family, share your story below and subscribe.